Okay. So NGRX, right? So when we talk about interview, so this is pretty important question, right? Either what do we say? Doesn't matter your experience. Either your experience is around 3 or 7 or 8 or 9. This is very common question. Okay. Now so many people get questions like how much they ask, right? So it's not like they want you to write the code, like they won't ask you to do the complete setup of NGRX and explain everything, but they want a candidate who is aware of NGRX. Okay, what is the need of state management? What things we have when we talk about NGRX, right? Let me allow you to unmute. Just a minute. Yeah. So when we talk about NGRX, first of all, what is the need of NGRX? What type of applications are there, or what type of data is there that you store in NGRX? Anyone like to guess? What type of data or what type of application will need engine? Again, let's say if we consider 100%, so I will say just 30% application, Angular application need NGRX. 70% Angular application won't even need your NGRX. So what will be those kind of application where we need NGRX?
There is any complex content we have to maintain, right?
Okay. What else?
That time,
What type of
Yeah,
data?
we can use NGRX in the place where there is micro front-end architecture because for handling this data and all, we can uh, carry that with behavior subjects itself.
Yeah, you can say like that ki when we talk about micro frontend, basically so many applications work together and you have some data that's need to be shared across the different applications. Yeah, so we can go with NGRX. But the basic purpose of NGRX is within your application, you have some data that need to be shared across all the component. Okay. Let's say if we talk about very basic API call, API calls we have when drop down API call. So we make an API call, we get the data and that data we show it into the drop down. And that same drop down we are going to need in multiple application. Okay. Be on mute if you're not talking. So that same data you are going to that drop down master kind of data, let's say city, state, a rule, that data you are going to need in every component. Let's say every after alternate two component, you are going to need that data. And that drop down data is coming from API. So instead of calling that data again and again in every component, instead of making that API call again, we can store the data into the store. So instead of making the API call, you can get the data from your store. That is one example. Another, let's say the logged in data. Normally, whenever user log in, we store the data. Where do we store this data? Logged in user. What roles particular user has? What is the complete user ID, username, and everything? Where do we store the logged in user data?
uh, local storage or any service using the behavior
Service,
subject
local
or
storage,
subject.
session storage, cookies, right? Or even subject, behavior subject. Just like that, we can store the data into your NGRX store also. So consider this is one type of more storage what you have. You have browser storage, you have service level storage, you have RxJS level storage. One more way of storage is NGRX. Okay. Now, whatever you can do with NGRX, whatever the type of data you can store it NGRX, same you can do with RxJS also. Okay. So there is nothing that you can store it RxJS and you cannot store it over there and vice versa. So whatever you are capable of doing it over here, we can do the same thing over here. When we talk about storing means your subject or behavior subject. Okay. Whatever we use it to store the data. So same like that we used to store it over here. Same kind of data we can store it over in NGRX. But NGRX gives you a proper method and way how you can manage a huge complex data. Yeah, subject and behavior subject you will use when you have very little information of data. It's not very complex. You can store the data in subject or behavior subject as per your need. But let's say you are storing a huge complex data, user, logged in data, logged in role, multiple entitlements. If you are opening a page and that page level some data is there, detail page is there and detail component, so many components you are opening. You have a stepper or tabs. So much of complex data is there. So we can do that over here also, but after some time it might get complicated if you want to store all the data, multiple subject, multiple behavior subject will keep on creating to read, update, there will be multiple methods. So instead of creating a chaos of multiple subject and multiple behavior subject, a good way to manage the complex data will be NGRX. Okay. As I said, not all application need NGRX, but why this is important then? Even though I have seen like till now, let's say from last 5 to 6 years, whatever the major projects, banking, ERP, CRM based application which I have used, one was logistic also. In all the project, I had NGRX implemented in our project, but no one was using it. So what happens? Whenever a new project gets started, everyone will like, yeah, we will use NGRX. But when it comes to actually using it, it's writing so much unnecessary code. So when someone, let's say your architect or your team lead set up the project, he will implement NGRX. He will ask your developer to follow the NGRX and store the data in NGRX also. But when it comes to actual development, writing extra code just to store the data and retrieve the data and again check if the data is not there and everything, right? Again, test cases also will come into the picture. So sometimes it gets very difficult. So that's why I said, even though project will have it, people will hardly use it. If your project also should be like that, that you are dealing with huge complex data, then only NGRX is very important. So not all project will have NGRX. So this is just to filter out good candidate. Okay. Whenever it comes to the intro, obviously the person who knows NGRX knows reactivity, knows RxJS, what is the purpose of state management. And if he is good with NGRX, obviously remaining things are pretty clear to him. That's the sense, right? No one can directly master the NGRX. If he doesn't know remaining things, obviously no one will know NGRX, right? So just to filter out good candidate, NGRX is very important. So doesn't matter your project had it or not. Make sure you know all the basic things what you should know in NGRX. Okay, let's see if anyone can tell me like what major components are there when we talk about NGRX.
First thing we say store. Second thing
We
users.
will call store. Then
Second thing is actions.
actions. Then
Reducer,
Users.
reducers,
effects,
selector,
effects.
Slices,
Then
selector,
selectors.
selectors,
That's it.
slices,
state,
Slices. I'm also not sure what it does.
state,
state.
What slices does?
It is store data.
Store data. Okay, let's see that later. But more all, we have store. Store is a one container where we store all the data, right? Then action. So let's say in your store, you are storing logged username. This is one property you are storing. Then you are storing it rules that particular user has. So in your store, you are storing two types of data, logged username and the rules. So in action, so in your store, you have two, you can say like it's like a variable. So this is one variable and this is second variable. So in action, you will store when you talk about user rule, logged in username. So what action you can perform? What operation you can perform on logged username? Consider it's a variable. Okay. What operation you will perform on this logged username?
Show that name in the
Either you will store it, you will update it, or you can delete it. On click of logout, you will delete the data. Correct? So actions are nothing but what operation you are going to perform on your data, which is getting stored in your store. Got it? Actions is nothing but what operation you are going to perform on the data what you have stored in your store. Those are nothing but actions. So here you declare what type of operations are allowed. Reading, updating, deleting, whatever operations. Okay. So those are nothing but your actions. Then we have reducer. So reducer is a place here you just describe the action. Here you just describe what type of options are allowed. Here you actually write the implementation. Whatever the actions code is there, implementation. will be over here in the reducer. Guys, don't use anything. Okay. So reducer is a place where you have the actual code which is going to do some manipulation with the data which you have stored into your store. Then we have effect. So effect is like whenever API calls is in the picture, you have some data coming from the API that you are storing to the store, then only effect will come into the picture. API call related. Okay. Then selector. As it's a store, you are storing the key value pair data. If you want to read a data from the store, let's say you need the logged in user data. So selector will help you to read the data or select value from store. Okay, so for now, I'm also not aware about slice, so I'm not covering that. I also need to explore because as I said, even though all my previous project had store, but I didn't use it. So again, my knowledge is also limited. So whenever I do prepare and for YouTube, whenever I use the time to revise it, so that's it. Okay, so this is what I know till now. Okay, now today we won't be seeing the API call one. I will try to plan one more session where we will discuss the API call related the effect, but remaining thing I will try to explain. So we will try a very basic example. Again, those who are actually giving interviews, this is very important that you set up one project. Okay, you set up one project at least from scratch to the live. One project. Create a new project, do create action, do write reducers, register your store into your app config, use if you know what that dispatch and everything. So complete. It is you won't get the confidence unless you implement the whole thing by yourself. Reading out just theory or having that theoretical part clear in your head won't give interviewer confidence that yeah you actually know the NGRX unless you do it. So many people will when I communicate with so many people who are not able to clear the intro, they will say yeah NGRX they are not able to answer. But when I ask them that have you actually tried implementing it, so they will say no. So just learning the theory won't help you to clear it. It's not about NGRX also. Either it is RxJS, creating custom directive, creating custom pipe, your reusable component, all the advanced things. Whenever you get stuck, have a hands-on, even interceptor, right? Pipe. Sometimes they ask you what method you have in pipe, transform method you have. Sometimes they ask you in interceptor how many parameter does that interceptor has? 2 parameter, right? So when you write it, you get that confidence. But just by reading or by hearting answer, no, it won't do any good. Because you also know that Angular, so many people are jumping. .NET developer also jumping, Angular developer, PHP guys, people are directly learning Angular also. So we are competing with so many people who are coming from different technology. Many of you might say yeah, React will have so many openings. Yeah, obviously it has. Because people from Java, PHP, .NET, they won't jump to the React because to work on React, you need a strong JavaScript, not the basic after that. So it's not that much easy. But Angular, even though you know basic of JavaScript, variable function, you can directly jump to the Angular. So it is relatively easy. And Angular, those who knows object-oriented programming, they feel very relatable to Angular. So we are competing with so many guys. So how much confident you are while giving answer, that is nothing but a selection criteria for interviews. Okay. Let's start. So this is an Angular 21 project. In my system I have installed 22, but I don't know like with 22 NGRX version is compatible or not. So I'm going with 21. But the coding and everything will be as it is. Nothing change will be in that. Okay. So this is my Angular 21 project standalone. Okay. So we have app config. Now first thing we have to install the package. So NGRX store. This is the only package we need. If you need API call effect and everything, then you need to install one more package. But if you just want to implement the store, so this is the only package you need. So let's open a new terminal. Here you install it. So it is asking it found the package. Yes. It will add the entry to your package.json also. So here you can see it has added the entry to the package.json and it has updated app config also. Let me show you package.json. So in package.json, we have got the entry, and if you check the app config, Here you can see provider store got added. Okay, this is the change what we have done. So this is the ng add @NGRX that store package we have added. Now what simple example, counter example I'm going to build. Now counter example, let's say you want, just a minute. Give me a second. I forgot some people to send. Just let them join. Thank you, Shreya. Otherwise, it was a bleak wonder. Okay, so counter.action. So we have created an action file. Now here we have just to create an action. So create action. It is coming from NGRX store. Now this is the action name, create action. Now here you can just provide some info like what do we say? Increment. This is just whenever we call, whenever we dispatch, so uniquely identifies it on increment. This is one action. You can write it anything over there. Export const decrement action. Again, this action word is not needed, but just we are going to see that in multiple files. So just to identify that okay, this is coming from action, that's why I'm giving like that. Again, create action, round bracket. This is decrement. Okay, so in our store, we are going to store a count. So these are the two actions we have, increment and the decrement. Now we created action. So actions are nothing but what operation are allowed on your store value. Now you have to create the reducer. So again, right click, counter dot reducer dot ts. Okay. Now here you have to create a reducer. Export const. Why export? Because we are going to use it in another file. So obviously export should be there. Otherwise, how you are going to use it? Let's say counter reducer is equal to. Now, when we created action, we have used the function that is create action. Here we are creating a reducer. So create reducer. Create reducer. Now, if you check, it needs initial state. Key reducer, as I said, reducer is the actual place where we are going to perform all the modification of the store. So it needs initial state. Key, yeah, we are initializing a store. So what will be the default value? If it's counter, shall it start from 0 or 1? Whatever default value. So we will create a variable constant default value. Let's say I want my store to be initialized with 0. So this variable I will pass on over here, comma, enter, just to format it properly. Then on method are there. Okay. Now on. So here you have to provide the action. Key on this store, on this counter, what action you have. So this action, whatever you declared over here now, that you need to provide it over here. Increment action. So see, it is coming from counter dot action. So that's why I have given the name dot action. So if the action is this, what you need to do? So comma state, current state value, you get it over here, arrow operator. This is increment. So state existing value, you get it over here. What you need to do? You need to increment it. So +1. This is 1. Just like that on second action, decrement action, comma state. This is the current state. Reducer is a pure function. It always return a new state by using the existing state. So state -1. Okay. So we have created two action, increment and decrement. So in reducer, we have implemented those two action. Action completed, reducer completed. Then third, we have to create your, what do we say? In your interface. Because when you talk about state, you can have multiple data, na? Logged in user, counter, roles, entitlement. You can have multiple data. So in your state, what type of data you have? So that interface you are going to create. So it just state.ts interface I'm creating. Export just to strongly type. Okay, this is totally optional. Export interface I state. So currently we just have count. So we will go with count number. Okay. So we created action, then we created reducers, and in your store, what number of data you are going to store. So currently we are just storing count. So that I have stored over here. Then your reducer is created. Now you can register your reducer into your app.config. So when we install the package, you can see this got added. So here you have to register the store. Okay. So curly bracket, your count name, and for this state, in your state, as I said, na, ki that multiple different values, count, logged in variable, city list, array list. So for every data, what you are going to store, you will have multiple different reducer. So here you can provide your reducer, counter reducer. Okay. This is how you register your store. Now, so this is very basic implementation. Now I will create two component. So let's create couple of component. ng generate component increment btn. So buttons, plus and minus button, that button I will call it from different component. So from one component, if I'm doing something, your store is going to update. So for that I'm creating component. Okay, just like that, one more component I will create for decrement. So two components I have created. Now both of these component I will render into my app component. Again, this is standalone component. So first we need to import it. Increment button component and decrement button component. Now in my HTML, let's get rid of the basic code. Now here, let's have a table, tr, td, 1td, I have it over here, td and td. Style, I don't have bootstrap or something installed over here. So let's go with this. Now, so in the middle TD, I want to show the counter. What is the actual value of my count? So to read that actual value in your app component, you need to inject the store service. Okay. So store is equal to inject. You need to inject your store. So store. So you can see store is coming from your NGRX store. Now here you can provide the data type. In your store, what type of different data types we have? So remember we created interface. So that interface you have to provide over here. So I state. Why it is not coming? I state only, no? I state store. Let's give a meaningful name. App component. Let's add the import of it. This is how you inject your store. Now you need a counter variable. So that will be, when you subscribe the data, you create an observable and you use the async pipe. So that way I'm going to use. So counter dollar. In this variable, we are going to store observable type of data. So observable of number. Counter is nothing but number only. Okay. Now in constructor, how do you read the data? Now we are seeing selector. Okay. So this dot counter is equal to this dot store dot pipe. Okay. Now this pipe is not your RxJS pipe. This is from, sorry, RxJS only. Inside that we have select. Select was from NGRX store. Now here you want to store the actual name. Okay. In your store, as I said, you can have counter, logged in username, roles. What you need? You need count. Okay. Now in this you have observable type of data. How do you read the observable type of data in HTML? By using async pipe. So let's import async pipe. Now in your HTML, in the middle TD, interpolation, counter, add async pipe. Why it's not coming? sorry, async fine. Now it will start suggestion over here. Let's save it and check first. By default, 0 should be there. So you can see 0 is coming over here. Okay. Now in our component, we have created two components, increment and decrement. Now in both the component, what we will have? Just a normal button. So here we will have plus plus, and in decrement button component, you will have just minus minus, minus minus. And this component I will render in the respective component. So over here, app hyphen decrement button component I'm rendering, and here I'm rendering app hyphen increment button component. Why I'm doing this? So you get to understand ki if I'm doing some operation in one component, my store value is getting changed and that store value is getting updated in a different component. You know, same thing we do in RxJS. You change a value from one component, you store it into the subject or behavior section, and you subscribe that in somewhere. So component communication, right? So with NGRX also you can achieve that. Okay. Now, so in increment component, let's see if, yeah, so plus plus and minus minus is coming fine. 100% is there, but why? Okay, let it be. It's not taking equal space. Now in your, let's say first increment component. Now in increment component, if you click on this button, what you need to do, you need to, we did minus minus over here. This should be plus plus. This should be minus minus. So from your increment button click, what you need to do, you need to increment the value count from your store. So let's write a click event on increment counter. Let's create this function into your increment function. Now from this function, what you need to do, you need to change the value of that counter from your store. So again, you are going to inject, you have to inject the counter, sorry, store, then only you can do any operation on the store. So again, store, inject, store, I state store. Why it's not suggesting? Let's add the input. Okay. So increment, in the increment button component, we have injected our store service. Now from that button click, what you need to do, you need to change, you need to increment it. So that is the operation. So in the store, we have already said key on the counter variable, what operations are allowed? Only increment and the decrement. All right. So from your increment button component, you have to execute this action. But when you execute this action, a respective reducer will execute, means this block of code will execute. Because our actual code modification is in the reducer, but we don't directly execute the reducer. So we execute action in response of the action, our response to that means our reducer will execute. But because here you say you have passed on the action, whenever this action will execute, this line of code will execute. Whenever this action will execute, this line of code will execute. Okay. So now from increment function, this dot store dot dispatch method is there. So whenever you have to invoke any action, so you have to use dispatch method, and increment action, you have to invoke it. So round bracket. Just like the same in decrement, let's import it. And on this button also we need a callback on counter. Okay. Now over here, we just need to dispatch another action, that is decrement. So this dot store dot dispatch, whenever you have to execute an action, you use it dispatch method. decrement action. You have to invoke it. So from counter component, you are dispatching invoke increment action, and for decrement, you are decrementing. You are calling decrement action. Let's save it. So by default, it is 0. If I click on plus, see, now this action is happening from a different component, but your app component is able to show the updated value. Understood? This button is coming from your different component. This counter is you are showing in the app component, and this button is also coming from a different component. See, so this is a centralized value. So you are changing the store value from different component, and you are reading the value in a different component. Okay. So even if you are able to means you are able to confidently implement this also, you are good to go. Okay. One more thing you have to do, that is the effect when API calls come to the picture. Okay. So as I said, we will see that. But this is everything what you should know. Like how do you create an action? What is the use of action? What is reducer? How do you register a store? Now this is app config, so we use it like this. In app module also it was similar, but instead of provider store, it was I think store for root something was there. I forgot that now. In app module also same thing. Whenever you create the store, you need to register in either app config, if it is the old one. So in module you used to register into the import for root store was something there. Okay. Understood now? So this is everything what you should know. Whatever the action you created, you invoke that action by using dispatch method. Now some interviewer will try to, even if you answer this now, they know ki, yeah, you know the basic question, then they will come up with, hey, have you written the test cases? It's okay to say no. Because whenever you write the test cases for the store, it's very complicated. Even though you say, na, yeah, I have done this, again, there will be a counter question. So explaining store is the important part. But just sometimes they want to degrade your confidence, right? No one likes you, no interviewer likes the very, what do we say, you are giving all the answer and he's happy. No interviewer will get that happy if you are giving all the, he always try to come up with a question which he wants to see, like, yeah, he doesn't know this and he knows that. Okay. So no one should ask. Now by now everyone has access to Copilot or Cloud or any Windsurf or any AI tool which is writing the test cases. We don't get time to write the test cases, right? So we use AI tool to write the test cases. So don't focus on that. But on the implementation part, you should be clear key. What are the steps? You create action, then you create reducer, then if API call is into the picture, then you create effect. Sometimes you create the reduce selector also. Currently what we did in the component only, we have used the selector like this. So instead of reading the data like this, we can create a separate file also. Okay. Ultimately, whatever you are doing it over here, that you move out to a different file. Okay. Basically, reading the data, we use the selector. This is nothing but selector. By using dispatch method, you invoke an action. When you invoke an action, by default, your reducer gets executed. So this whole cycle you should have clear in your mind, but with the code also, not just theoretical. So with this information, if you anyone, those who are giving interviews, if you implement this, I can guarantee that, yeah, you will clear the interview. This question won't be a problem for you now. Okay. One more thing, that effect is there. So you should know that also once you implement, then confidence is that the main thing. If you have implemented effect also one, then you will say, yeah, this is what things are there. But let's say API call data we need to store, then we need the effect. That line is important. With what confidence you are saying. Okay. Yeah. If any questions are there.
So then actually, here we are increment only one by one, right? So 1, 2, 3 like that. If we customize, I have to increment
We
10,
can do,
20 like.
yeah, we can do that
Yeah.
also. So there we need a separate way where you can, while calling the action, you can pass the parameter also.
Yeah.
Currently our action doesn't have a parameter, but we can have that also. When we see the effect now, there I will explain it.
Mm.
Because
Okay,
we
fine.
need to store the API call data. So there, while invoking an action, you need to pass on the data also.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyone else? So those who are in the interview process, make sure you at least have a counter example ready. And before every interview, go through this file one more time. So even
Yes,
if
sir.
let's say today you implemented, and after 3 or 4 days you have improved this.
Sir,
You are
Sir.
supposed to forget this.
sir, excuse me.
Question.
Go
So
ahead.
here do we recommend like writing this individual actions, or will you recommend using action group, like create action group?
Sorry, come again.
Like here we are writing actions individually, right?
Right.
So instead of this, so will you recommend to write create action group so that we can write all the actions inside it?
Create action loop
Group.
or array you're saying? Loop?
Create action group.
Group.
Yeah.
I'm also yet to figure out. If you know that group does the same thing, so yeah.
Yeah, like it will group everything like form group instead of no form control. It like we have form builder, right? So it will like that.
I'm not sure. I have not used create action group yet. Anyone knows if we can group multiple action in something?
Yeah,
I'm
we
not
have
aware.
been documentation.
It will be there, but I'm yet to explore.
Okay.
Okay.
Chetan, what is that I state store and how it is linked to my our
This is
store
just an
actually?
interface.
Mhm.
You know, when you do the API call integration, you create interface or class, na, just to strongly type. That is that. Okay. As I said, in your store, let's say you are storing logged username. Data type string you are storing. Okay. Then rules, it's a string array. So what type of data you are storing in your store? Because it's a store, it cannot have a single value, na? It can have multiple key value pair data. So what type of different key value pair data you have, that you are deciding over here. And this you are passing in your app config. So you are letting, sorry, where it is, wherever you are injecting your store action. So you are letting know, okay, in your store, what different values are there. So instead of going with any, you are strongly typing. Understood?
Yeah.
Okay. So let me means I have that. I know everything about effect, but again, it's been around 4 to 5 months I have given a try. So I also need to give a try to that effect, because when you write the effect now, it's a very complex code. We cannot, it's not very easy like we can write it over here. Syntax is something difficult. So I need to also practice it one more time. Then we can have one more session there. I will explain the effect also, where we create the, where we store the API call related data. Okay. But before that, give it a try to this. You should be compatible with at least basic of this. Then effect is there whenever we have to store the API call related data. Yeah. Anyone having any doubt? Okay. That's it. I will call it an off. Thank you for joining.
Yeah, thank you.